Welcome to Brewsers, a podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. I'm your host, Rody John, and today we speak to Mark Gray. We talk all about his journey in MMA, training, and so much more. Again, this is such a fun conversation. This was done back in May, so some of the stuff that we are talking about or we're talking about in the future may be a little outdated, but it is still a fun conversation, and I love to see what's happening in the future with these guys. So before we get there, make sure to sign up for our newsletter. It comes out twice a week. You get even more information about our guests. You get fun facts, and you can find out what's happening with your favorite podcast about beer, coffee, booze, and bruisers. So without further ado, here is Mark Gray. I would like to welcome to the show Mark Gray. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing all right, man. How about yourself? Thanks for having me on.
No problem. I'm doing well. So for those who are listening to this, kind of give us or paint us a word picture. Where are you at? What's going on around you? All that stuff.
So right now I'm in Island Heights at my house. Island Heights is a small little suburb right outside of Toms River, New Jersey, which is also obviously right across the bridge from, Seaside Heights, Lavalette, all that area, Jersey Shore.
Beautiful. Now, what is your earliest memory of martial arts?
My earliest memory?
Yes.
Well, I really grew up wrestling. So ever since I was like 4 or 5 years old, I've been wrestling my whole life. So like I guess really the earliest memory would be that, but like strictly like MMA, I remember just watching, ever since I was like 14, 15, watching UFC, watching all the pay-per-view fights and whatnot.
Who were some of the fighters that you always kind of look forward to whenever you were watching fights? Because I imagine this is what, the mid to early 2010s?
Yeah, so I remember like DJ coming up, the beginning of Johnny Bones and, obviously Frankie Edgar, watching him fighting Gray, stuff like that. Shogun, Chuck Liddell, just watching him do their thing and just kind of, being like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. I never really thought like, I watched like a little bit, but like I was always, wrestling, but every once in a while when there was a big fight coming up, I got, convinced my parents to order it.
Right. Yeah, because, back then it was you get one, maybe two a month, and now, almost every weekend we've got some kind of fights, whether they be UFC or, PFL, Bellator, one doing fantastic things. And then, of course, depending on where you live, the regional fights that are also happening on the same weekends, it's like if you really wanted to, you could spend all day just watching fights and then trying to catch up on fights that you missed on top of that over the weekend.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially nowadays. Crazy. Regional scenes.
Luckily also with technology, we have the access to being able to, actually watch all these fights, either right after they happened or like a day at least afterwards. So, it's always a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great to study as well.
That's so true because the sport is young enough that everything was recorded. So if you ever wanted to go back and watch somebody fight or any of their fights, it's all available for you, which I think is an absolutely fantastic thing as opposed to, we got boxers back in the day or even early days of MMA where, you would have to put in videotapes and actually try to, rewind and go back and forth as to try to pick out the little things. But now you just kind of pause or back 10 seconds or however long you need.
Yeah, no, it definitely helps, seeing the little details and, little fights and tendencies that people have. Super, super helpful.
Yeah, without a doubt. So how did you finally make that jump to, being an amateur wrestler into, all right, I'm going to try this MMA thing?
So I was 3 years removed from college. I just finished I finished Cornell University in 2017. So I was working as a project manager, building like high rises in Philadelphia and South Jersey. And I was doing that for about 3 years, and COVID hit. And then I was kind of like talking to my wife, and this is like kind of back when like September 2020. So it kind of was on like the end, of the, like, people were starting to go back to work and whatnot, and then gyms kind of opening up, So the company I was working with was a startup general contractor. So once COVID hit, they kind of were like letting people go because it was, not very affordable. So then I got let go and was kind of like just thinking about what my next move was going to be. And then was just like, still had the fire to compete. So I was just like, I'm going to give. Once I talked to my wife a little bit, got the okay, and I was like, all right, probably going to give this a go. I hit up Frankie Egger, and then all of his kind of like his training routine, which was like going to Ricardo Almeida's, going to Mark Henry and Nick Catone's, and just kind of made that routine happen as soon as I signed up. Like I signed up and started in October, and then just like hit the full forces going, 6 days a week. Right into it. Yeah. What
did your training days look like then? And then I guess your training week, and then what did your training week look like now?
Back then, so I was kind of like, I just signed, like I would go to, Nick Catone's and just do like, I would do like a boxing class or a Muay Thai. I would always I was always in wrestling practice because I was doing it my whole life. So he allowed that, but obviously I couldn't come in and just spar. So, I was taking boxing classes, Muay Thai, just learning, hitting pads with, Ryan Kafara, who's a striking coach, and kind of just learning slowly how to just strictly work on, stand up. Nowadays, I'm going 6 days a week, hitting three sessions a day, or, I'm alternating between jiu-jitsu, pads, back to like boxing, stuff like that, just trying to hit all three areas at least 2 to 3 times a week.
That's smart. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, I've always kind of had this theory, and I think a lot of people have also kind of made it true as well. Do you think having a wrestling base and background helps even more in the MMA world?
Oh, absolutely. Like 100. I think 100%. Not just because obviously you have the ground foundation, which is huge. I think you can kind of control wherever the fight's gonna go, which I think is really big. If you're going up against another wrestler and say your hands are a little better, you can really keep it on the feet. If you're going against a striker, or a kickboxer who's got more years on your feet, you think, all right, let's bring it back down to my level. So I think it's just, it can kind of slow the fight down a little bit and play a little bit more of a chess game, So I think that's really huge. But I also think, it's, even when if you watch like 2 strikers, a lot of the time they actually end up on the ground as well. It's never just like a stand-up battle like all the time. I feel like even with 2 strikers, inevitably it'll go down to the ground like once or twice. So I just think being good on the ground is so effective, especially when you can, piece your pass together where you're obviously including ground and pound, but advancing your position. If you're constantly thinking about moving forward, advancing your position, applying pressure, I think that's what ultimately will end up breaking your opponent. Whether it may not be the second round, it may be the third, but you can slowly just feel them, go into a dark place, and the battles that were very hard in the first round, in the beginning of the first round, a little bit easier in the second, and then super easy in the third.
Yeah, very true. Now, you're undefeated in MMA. Do you feel that's both an advantage and a disadvantage?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, as you get, higher up, I feel like it could be a little bit more. It's all just belief, belief in yourself. I think that's what it comes down to. Because as you keep winning, you're obviously going to see that, 6, 7, 8 now.
Right.
Which you could add, it could add pressure to yourself. It could add expectations. But I think just being true to yourself and just going out there and really focusing on your performance, I think for me helps me a lot. I focus on, how can I try to execute, what I've been working on, rather than thinking about, all right, how am I going to win this fight? Because obviously everyone wants to win. But,
yeah.
I think thinking about how we can, work on what you've been implying in all camp, really focus on, all right, I'm going to move my feet here. I'm going to be, not stationary. Thinking about those little things in your own game, it's going to paint a whole picture. And at the end of it, usually your hand can be raised. It's not something about, I think people tend to think about, the outcome so much, and then they start freezing up.
No, that's true too, because you can, as much as it's physical, it's also a very mental sport as well. And if you are too in your head about, I didn't do this enough, or I didn't do this enough, or even to the extent of like, you're going to fight with your girlfriend or your boyfriend before a fight, and then all of a sudden, your head's taken out of the game before you even get inside that cage. So, the mental sharpness really has to be there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially going, with the opponents, whether you're going to have an opponent or not, I think that's huge as well. I didn't realize how big that was in this game, where, you could have someone be training someone for 6 weeks, and then they pull out 2 weeks before, and then you guys say, all right, well, we got to get someone. It doesn't matter who it is. We need an opponent. So I think that is also a big factor.
That's true, because there is a lot of times that, we saw it, 2 weeks ago with Burns and Bilal Muhammad. Like, that fight was just thrown together quickly, and, Burns is going to say no to that fight, like, even though he just fought? Like, why would you say no to that? And just wait out until the next fight. But in the long run, looking back, he probably should have, and just, maybe kind of waited until that, title fight between Edwards and Colby actually did happen, because, we find out after the fight that he is, he's going in there injured. He's already kind of banged up from not only fighting twice this year, and we're in our 5th month of the year, but also, it can happen in training camp too. Like, they've sparred together before, and he busted his eyebrow open, not on purpose, obviously, but things just happen. So, that's always a factor as well. And I'm glad you brought that up of the, last second, something happened, they got to pull out, we got to find a new fighter. Well, first off, I don't know that new fighter, and everything I had game plan wise, I got to throw out the window and start all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely a big mental part. And sometimes, you want to get in there, but, sometimes a smarter move is just, all right, I'll catch the next card or whatnot.
Right.
But
yeah, because everyone wants to show off what they got.
Yeah, I see it both ways.
Yeah. Now, we kind of touched on the mental aspect of it all, but what kind of mental workouts do you try to do, whether